Gaslighting 101. There was this woman I was into, but I was too shy to talk to her. I think she liked me too at first, but then I heard rumors. She said she thought I was too short for her, among other things, and I began to despise her. So I came up with a pretty intricate design for gaslighting her over the course of years, making her feel insane and alone in an effort to break her down so she would hit her rock bottom, or worse. I've been doing it for over a decade. I like to play the long game. I've started communicating with her online, pretending to be all kinds of other people. On dating apps, social apps, though email, you name it. I literally have hundreds of accounts. I even managed to get into her iCloud, which really elevated my game. I would make a blog and get her to follow it. I have my ways. And then I would sprinkle in stories quoting her text messages and emails to really mess with her head. She started to catch on to what I was doing and tried outing me online with her evidence against me. To give you a taste for the kind of scenarios I like to set up for her. Over the years, she has taken to the internet trying to expose me. The first time she started posting her evidence of what I was doing to her, I began my disinformation campaign from multiple accounts to silence her and make her story look silly. I get all her posts flagged and removed, claiming they're harassment against me, and I have my accounts comment on her stuff telling her she's nuts, etc. So the public will see that and not take her story seriously. I also send her more DMs than she knows what to do with. I like to message her as other people telling her they have the same exact story as she does, and the real-life me is doing this to them too. Then I give her the theories on why the real-life me would want to do that, like the one below. I'm hesitant to share my theory with you because I kinda already did, and you didn't receive it well. But for the purposes of trying to make sense of it, I'll give it another shot. Why do serial killers kill? What's wrong in their mind that they have a desire for blood shed? It usually comes out that they have ties to the occult. What is the occult? Mysteries, magic, power, enlightenment. The more power one gets, the more one wants. But where does it come from? Demons. And you know what demons want? Blood. They must be fed. You want money, power, fame? There's a cost. Bloodshed. This is real. Go to the library. Research it on the internet. Try YouTube. There's an endless supply of info if you really want to find it. But be careful. You gotta watch for disinformation trying to throw you off. The battle of good versus evil is legit. And if you can't see that just by watching 5 minutes of the news, you're in major denial. God is real. Satan is real, and they're at war for our souls. Problem is, everybody's asleep because every bit of entertainment brainwashes us to be vulgar and moralless. And you know why? Because Satan runs it. Every person in any kind of influential position is his pawn. So if they want fame, they gotta play by his rules. So you have your traditional serial killers doing Satan's work. What if with the internet there were a new game? Talk, harass, play head games with lonely people who are susceptible to suicidal ideation. Find them when they're vulnerable and groom them. Make them feel desired and needed, but don't ever do anything about it. String them along until they think they're losing their mind and then give them a gentle shove. It's the perfect crime. Why is he doing this to so many people? Trying to make them fall in love. Why are his friends helping? Why would he go to all the trouble of having so many secret accounts? There's something big behind this. We know it's happening. She's ordinary. I'm ordinary. Isn't it easier to flatter an ordinary person who has nothing to offer? What possible reason could he have for doing this? Sorry so long? I get a kick out of how creative I can be, and I like planting these little seeds of paranoia in her mind that might grow into something more. I've also created entire blogs about gangs talking and sent her messages from those telling her she's being targeted and has V2K technology planted in her skull to monitor her thoughts. It's really just about having fun in my downtime, and I know she's lonely and needs something to do too. So I'm pretty sure she likes it, but it also is very satisfying revenge. What happens when neighborhood punks decide to beat up veteran's son? Apologies for the length. I'll be sure to include a TLDR at the end. All names have been changed to protect the innocent. This is actually a story my dad told me about one of his childhood friends, George, who recently passed away. Dad and George grew up in a booming city in what's now known as the Rust Belt. You were pretty much guaranteed a job at the major car plant in town. You were pretty much guaranteed a job at the plant in town as soon as you got out of high school. George was one of those people. Dad wasn't. Dad accepted a scholarship to his dream school to study engineering. During the weekends and holidays, he'd come home and hang out with his buddies, including George. One afternoon, Dad gets a phone call from Grandma. George had been jumped after work and had the metaphorical tar beaten out of him. For a while, it looked like he wasn't going to make it. By some miracle, George pulled through but was in such bad shape that he had to retire early and go on disability. While on one of his visits home, George's dad, Walter, pulls Dad aside and asks him if he knows a guy named Flynn. Dad had heard the name was one of the local troublemakers. He asked Walter why, and Walter revealed that the wallet had been found by George's body and given to him. The paramedics thought the wallet was George's. No, I have no idea why they didn't check on it. Unfortunately, the city was going through financial difficulties, thanks to corruption and mismanagement, to the point that they didn't have enough money to pay their police officers during the weekends. No, I am not kidding. From 8 p.m. Friday night to 6 a.m. Monday morning, there wasn't a single police officer on duty. Since the assault took place on Friday night, there wasn't much anyone can do. Dad asked Walter what he was going to do about it. Walter looked at him with a stern face and said, "I take care of my own." Walter was an army vet who had served during WW2 in Korea. He never spoke about his time, claiming he was a radio technician and never left the base. He never breathed a word to anyone, even George's mother, his wife. The full story never came out until after George's death, when a letter Walter had written before his death was found in George's possessions. After realizing that Flynn was one of the people who had destroyed George's life, Walter got in touch with his friends. He was a personable guy, you know the type? The kind who makes friends in 5 minutes. They all agreed that something had to be done, and thus, Operation George's Revenge was born. Walter and his friends began observation of Flynn and would keep tabs on him. It took several weeks, but eventually, Flynn and his buddies, Mac and Zeno, were overheard bragging about the attack. Knowing who to attack, they moved to the next steps. Walter's friends, some of whom worked in high places, decided to make some phone calls to their friends in the plant where all three worked. See, these friends were union. State was closed shop at the time, and disgusted about what happened to George, they decided to make things difficult for them. They'd remove vital tools for emergency maintenance at the last minute, put them in positions they weren't good in, and rearrange the schedule so they got the worst shifts, to name a few. They also began a whispering campaign, so everyone at the plant knew what had happened. In this city back then, who you knew and what everyone thought you've done was enough to make or break you. The goal was to get them to quit, and after a year or so, all three had quit, frustrated with how they were being treated. But Walter and his friends aren't done, not by a long shot. A few phone calls and anonymous letters later, Flynn, Mac, and Zeno were unemployable in the district. Because they hadn't been fired, they weren't entitled to severance or anything. Soon their money ran out, but they couldn't get out of town because everyone knew from the whispering campaign what they had done to George. For the rest of their lives, Walter and his friends kept an eye on Flynn, Mac, and Zeno. Just when it appeared that they had an out, the whisper letter campaign would start again, and they'd be denied an out. The three men ended up homeless and destitute alcoholics who couldn't even get state aid. And this is in a state that is known for its generous aid for those in bad straits. Walter and his friends made a contingency plan to continue this until the three men were dead using the next generation. So those men would never forget what they did to George. Nobody was able to find out anything about Flynn, Mac, and Zeno, but I wouldn't be surprised that they're still stuck and miserable. TLDR. Dad's childhood buddy was jumped by 3 troublemakers. Childhood buddy's veteran father and his friends decide to make troublemakers' lives heck for the rest of their lives. I'm trained to be an a-hole, you are not. This concluded about 3 months ago. First off, let me say I have PTSD from 2 tours. This isn't a brag or flex, but any vet with PTSD will vouch that it is very hard to let assholes walk away. Because of this stupid shit, I can only really work jobs alone now. I've been working a while at cleaning stores after hours. Not surface cleaning, but checking areas that mice have been, etc. Dirty job, but the pay more than makes up for it. One day I'm having some considerable back pain, so my wife, MIL and SIL cover for me. I get a call a couple hours later from my wife complaining about the manager. Now, I've worked retail before and I know it sucks, so I tend to give some leeway when non-retail folks say someone's being mean versus not in the mood for BS. I hear he yelled at them when they walked in that the store was closed. Okay, buddy, they used a key, chill. Then he got upset that he didn't know there was a cleaning that day. BS, I wrote and distributed the schedule 3 weeks prior, then tried to tell them where to clean. I have a contract and your employees' duties aren't included in it. I rolled my eyes at the complaint. I admit it. Managers suck, and I didn't think this was a big deal. Just some incompetent GM. Then I get a call a half hour later. GM was making some gender-based jokes to his all-male staff. Hey, you putting on your makeup? You need a tampon, etc. While they were shutting down. Okay, that's pretty tasteless, but for me it's hearsay. Then I'm told that on his way out of the parking lot, they saw the GM try to open my car's door. Insert PTSD here. I called the store the next day, asked to talk to the manager on duty. I have a pretty civil convo, highlighting my concerns about the manager paying attention to his schedule and contracts. I mentioned there was some witnessed unprofessionalism, but that's not for me to correct. Mind you, the convo is going very professionally up to this point. When I mention the car, Guy's whole attitude changes. He gets very vocal and very defensive, cutting me off and raising his voice. Before I realize we are yelling at each other, I hang up and talk to my wife. I describe the guy based off of his voice and accent, and my wife is certain that I'm speaking to the GM. I'll call him E. I call back and simply say, I want to know what authority you had to try to get in my car. E starts to play dumb until I name the security company that patrols and monitors his lot, shared lot with other businesses, and I can request footage through the police. E says he doesn't have to explain himself to me, and he hangs up. Oh, fuck no. I call back a final time. I say, if we can't work this out, I have to get your boss involved. Fine, go ahead and call me when you do. E hangs up. Insert revenge. I won't go into how, but I will explain what happened over the next few weeks. Remember, I have a key to this store, and am still able to show up on contracted days. E's handwritten statement about the argument goes missing. Not a huge loss. The thing was 90% lies to get ahead of what he did. Asterisk find multiple disciplinary notes that all show that Mr. E, as all of his employees seem to call him, loved to write up all his employees for frivolous shit. This is a common tactic by weak managers as insurance for when employees complain about them. These also go missing. Asterisk A file is found with many complaints about the store and interactions between E and customers. Copies are made. E's business starts to get multiple one-star Google reviews from various accounts. Some of the reviewers post pictures of his store's mouse infestation and product damage by little teeth that he leaves on the shelf. Let me tell you, seeing mouse shit next to food does wonders for your Google page. Asterisk 2 anonymous complaints to the city about the mouse infestation within the store with pictures, none of which match the ones I send to my bosses. Asterisk 1 complaint to the city from an employee that cites a ton of safety violations within the store, then mentions how bad the mouse infestation has gotten and that the city should inspect and make sure they ask for proof of an exterminator. There is none. Poor gal was begging. Her name even matched an employee's name. Fancy that. Asterisk random occult symbols begin to appear in E's work journal, hidden among things he has already written. To clarify, this is because I could recall the symbols. It point wasn't for the occult, it was so things would show up in his personal journal that he didn't write. Asterisk. His boss's boss, contact info hanging in office, received an email detailing his unprofessionalism, gender-based harassment, and attempt to get into a vehicle that wasn't his. I also mentioned how many violations I saw as I was cleaning. Broken equipment, safety hazards, lack of proper cleaning supplies, chemicals over pet food, etc. I even tried to compromise and said if they can provide a policy that says he could check my vehicle without security or law enforcement, then I'd retract my complaint. Otherwise, every scheduled cleaning that he is still there for, I'd cancel and send them a fee. Suddenly, there is a shift in the store. I still go much later to avoid people, but it is much cleaner. There are even enough cleaning supplies for the store to function. There are less passive-aggressive notes everywhere. Curious about it, I go in the office and see there is definitely a change. The complaint file is shrunk down and the office is cleaner. Whoever is boss now sure seems like a nice lady. E receives a text from a number he won't be able to call back. Have you learned your lesson yet? His full name. Or do I need to take your next job from you too? The end.